and action is not taken. Now you can say, we've done our part. This other institution is not doing its part, and therefore there's collusion. Now you can be able to say confidently that the institution is not working because we've done our bit in terms of protecting them. But now you've not done it. And what you're doing is that you're prosecuting your case in barazas. You are prosecuting it also in a manner that you are disadvantaging the judge, because remember, these judges, they can't respond. These people have no ability. You see, a politician has ability to be able to...
He has the platforms.
They have the platform, because every weekend, every day, they are addressing somebody somewhere. Now, a judge can only speak through their pen. And you see, it would be so wrong for judges now to start responding to these people. The moment they attack, they also respond in equal measure. That's not what's expected of them.
These accusations have not only come from the politicians, they have also come from seasoned advocates and jurists who have said, maybe we need another round of judicial reforms. Maybe we need to look back at what happened in the days of the Ringera, radical surgery of the judiciary. Maybe the Sharad Rao, vetting of all judges and magistrates. Maybe we need a fresh round where we can relook at the conduct of each individual judicial officer. Probably so. Have you heard that from members of the bar?
You see, my brother Eric, when you talk about the vetting and, when you talk about the Ringera surgery and all that, that was pre-2010 constitution. The way the Judicial Service Commission was constituted was very different from the way it is constituted today. The way Judiciary was constituted was very different. Remember, those were the days before the 2010 constitution. The president is the one used to appoint, basically, so to speak. In fact, whenever the recommendation would come from JSC, then, which was also not properly constituted, he could ignore. I mean, it really didn't matter. They could pick a judge from anywhere. They could pick, it was at their discretion. But things have changed. We have a new constitution. We have a Judicial Service Commission properly constituted. You have a judiciary also constituted differently. Same with the legislature, same with the executive. So this mechanism of, if you have a complaint, because even some of these lawyers who also complain against these judges, they don't put in any petition, they don't put in a complaint. They put in complaints through the media. And that's what I'm saying, that that's not the way to do it, because at the end of the day, if you lose a matter in court, don't go and complain in the media and now start branding a judge or judicial officer corrupt. Even I, as a lawyer, because I also practice law, though I don't go to courts, there are sometimes you are not happy with the decision of a judicial officer or a judge, which is normal, because anybody, when they lose, they'll not be happy about it. But what do we advise our clients? We tell them the process that you use is to appeal. Go to the Court of Appeal, and if the law allows, you'll go to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court never used to exist. So there are mechanisms of dealing with it. And that's why I'm saying that it doesn't mean that you cannot complain. It doesn't mean that you cannot criticize a decision. But what is the mechanism that you're going to use in pursuing your rights as provided under the Constitution of Kenya? That's what we need to learn as a country, that for us to preserve our institutions, let us not at the same time damage them. Because the moment we damage them, we become exposed. Are we forgetting about 2007, where this country nearly collapsed? And you remember, after that election, one side of the political divide said, we cannot go to those courts because we have no confidence in them. They are not independent. And it is for that reason that we say, let us now create an institution that can inspire confidence, that we can trust, that whenever we have disputes, whether political or otherwise, we can run to those institutions. So how many times do we want to continue destroying institutions that we go back to where we came from? Why do we want to have short memories?
Let's take a break and then we continue this conversation shortly. 7:30, our guest this morning, our Justice Thursday conversation is on the safeguarding the independence of the judiciary and also addressing concerns of corruption within the judiciary. The Vice Chairperson of the Judicial Service Commission, the Honorable Macharia Njeru, is our guest. Keep it here. We'll be back shortly.
This is The Situation Room The Nairobi.
Justice Thursday conversation continues with the Vice Chairperson of the Judicial Service Commission, the Honorable Macharia Njeru. The President has responded to the statement by the JSC Chair, and he says, I am ready and willing to meet with the Chief Justice. The Law Society of Kenya has said, no, you shouldn't. Senior Counsel Kalonzo Musyoka, leader of Wiper, no, you shouldn't. Raila, no, you shouldn't. Others have said, no, you shouldn't.
Again, I don't want to say what the Chief Justice will do or not do, because at the end of the day, she's the chair of the commission, and you must also remember she's also the head of the judiciary.
Yeah.
And you see, judiciary, it's also independent of Judicial Service Commission. So the Chief Justice wears those two hats among other hats, and of course we can't tie our hands. It's upon her to make a decision on how best to handle some of those situations. But one thing we cannot lose sight of is that as the head of an arm of government, I don't think it would be right for us to say that she can't meet another head of another arm of government. Because, you see, apart from the issues now that are rising now, that are in the public domain, there are many other issues that relate to the different institutions. And to say that she will never meet the other arm, the other head of arm of government, the president of the country, I don't think that's practical. It's not realistic, because there are always other issues that need to be discussed, not necessarily, what is happening now.
The challenge that they're raising is this meeting on this particular issue. The issue that the head of the executive is raising is complaining about the conduct of the judiciary in doing its job. And they say that if the head of the judiciary goes to meet with the president to have a conversation about how the judiciary should conduct its affairs, then that amounts to the head of the judiciary basically allowing herself to be controlled by the head of the executive.
It's not even possible. That I can tell you, that it's not possible for the Chief Justice to sit and discuss how judges should conduct themselves when they are dealing with the matters that are live in court. It's not possible, because judges are independent. They have decisional independence, and there's nothing we can do about that. In fact, it doesn't matter how many times we shout in public platforms. It doesn't matter how much we keep, discussing the issue. It's a discussion that amounts to nothing, so to speak. And I'll tell you why. Judges, remember, JSC is the employer of judges and judicial officers.
Yes.
When they are being taken through a disciplinary process, it is JSC that takes them through that process.
Yes.
Yet, judges and judicial officers all the time make decisions against JSC. There are many times they rule in our favor. There are many times they rule against us. And when they rule against us, what do? We go to the higher court. We go to the appeal court. And many times at the appeal court, we reverse those decisions. Many times appeal court has said, no, the judge was right. And what do? We go back to our boardroom, look at what we are supposed to regularize, whether it's a policy, whether it's a procedure, and we do it. We've never attacked them and told them that you are corrupt or you are cartels, because we just use the process. Or start disciplinary process against them. In fact, there are judges who have ruled against us, and then they've come back to us saying, when there's an application for you to go to the Court of Appeal, and they come and they appear before us, seeking now to go to the higher court to go and rule against us again. And we've taken them if they are good. So it's not an issue. And that's why I'm saying it is simply not practically possible to say that the Chief Justice is going to discuss about how the judges are going to conduct themselves regarding how they're going to determine the matters. It's simply not possible. It's not possible. So if that is the nature of the discussion, it's a discussion to nowhere. But if you're talking about other issues, about how do we ensure that we're able to relate in a manner that protects the integrity, that will be able to inspire confidence in the institution, how do you ensure that you can be able to empower the institution? Because, listen, my brothers, I would be okay, for instance, my brothers and sisters, sorry, I would be okay, like, for instance, if the executive were to say, whichever decisions that the judiciary is making, can you expedite so that we can know where we stand regarding a project? That would be a valid point, because not just the government, even members of the public keep saying justice delayed, it's justice denied. We want matters to be expedited. But that will also be an opportunity for us as judiciary and JSC to say, what are the key ingredients that we need to put, in this meal so that we can be able to achieve the desired taste. If you want us to expedite, please, can you increase our budget, because we need to employ more judges, but you are underfunding us. So we are not able to process these matters as quickly as possible because we have less hands, for instance. Can you be able to help us to continue putting up these courts, because you're not giving us enough money? We need to also improve on our technology. We need to put in more. So those discussions are valid if they are desired towards empowering and building the respective institutions for the greater good of the public. But to go and discuss about decisions, it's not possible.
So all of these things that you're saying, for me, lends to one direction, whereby where we do have the three arms of government, we know what they are: the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. Are we then saying that all of these, whether it's public outburst, whether it's innuendo from the executive, whether it's direct onslaught from the executive or anybody else, that then the judiciary, in the way in which it has been prescribed, then does not hold independence as an arm of government because of these things that we see?
You see, the institutions have to be independent, there's no doubt, but they're also interdependent. They have to relate. Because if you say that everybody operates in a silo, it can't work. It simply can't work, because all the three arms of government, like the Chief Justice said, is like a three-legged stool. They need each other. And you see, they're all geared towards serving the public. But when it comes to the operations of the institution, when it comes to the decisions you make, you must be independent. There's no way you can allow one institution to dictate to you how you're going to conduct your operations, how you're going to decide cases. It's a no, because the moment you start doing that and you lose the public, you have nothing left for you. In fact, I dare say, for the judiciary, you don't need the confidence of the politicians. What you need is the confidence of the public. Because see, the problem with the politicians, they'll say 5 different things in one day, to a point whereby in the morning what they say, by evening you don't know exactly what is their position. So why would you, as a judiciary or indeed any other institution, expect that you're going to inspire confidence, you're going to get confidence, or you want happiness from the politicians? It won't help you.
Okay.
So you are better off with the public, because the public will always stand for you. And in any event, we are all public before we are anything else.
Okay. You did say that the judiciary has challenges. The issue of corruption has come up before. This latest, what many are calling an attack, would not be the first time that allegations of corruption in the judiciary have been made. You did say that, yes, there are challenges. Corruption possibly being one of them. So the question is, even before the onslaught, what is the JSC doing about issues of corruption in the judiciary as a threat to process?
Now, I'll start by saying this, that there'll never be a time in the existence of humanity that will say that you'll always have a clean slate in any institution, whether historically, whether presently, whether in future. It's not possible. And that's why we put in these checks and balances, to ensure that you can be able to mitigate or contain, but not to say that you'll be able to eradicate altogether. And I can tell you that some of these challenges that will relate even to an institution like judiciary, they are not unique to us. Even in developed democracies, if you just Google and do some research, you'll find that those challenges, whether in America, it's something that is always being. In fact, right now, one of the debates is against a Supreme Court judge in the United States of America, Clarence Thomas. Now, as Judicial Service Commission, I just, in fact, at the outset, I said, last year alone, 3 judges exited. And no, removing a judge, I can tell you, Eric, and I can tell you, Ndu, is that it's not a walk in the park. It's a very elaborate process. Removing a judicial officer is also not a walk in the park. But we've done it. It's in the public. In fact, very recently, we've seen one exiting. So it's not that we've not done it. We've done it many times. And we'll continue doing it. So what we normally do, this is a process. Like if you have a petition against a judge, you bring it to the JSC. It is processed. We have a very elaborate complaints and investigation department that we've recently created at the JSC. In fact, we've picked one of the most experienced investigators, somebody who can make sure that these investigations are conducted independently and very expeditiously. Now, when these complaints are processed by a committee, which currently I chair, then it is taken to the full commission with the recommendations. And where we find that there's no culpability, it's a matter, for instance, that relates to a decision that was made by a judge. That JSC cannot determine, because we are not an appeal court. They have decision independence, so you have to advise the party, sorry, this decision independence, just follow the process. But if you find that this misconduct, what do? We tell the judges to respond, and we give them 21 days. After 21 days, if you are not satisfied, we create a panel where they're taken through a hearing like the one that is in court. And if we indeed find that there's evidence against that judge, we now forward those recommendations to the president to have a tribunal set up, and then it will determine. If the tribunal says that the judge should be sent home, they'll be sent home. And even then, remember, they also have a right to appeal.
The judge still can appeal.
Can appeal to the Supreme Court. That is due process. Now, the process is slightly different for the magistrates, because it starts with the Chief Justice, but eventually it lands with the commission. And we still follow again a process. At the end of the day, you have to give a right to be heard to the other party.
But then, in all this, the JSC is moved by a complaint, right? Does the JSC move out of its own volition, like seeing there's a trend here, and so let's take action?
We do.
Give us examples.
In fact, there are several, which of course I can't discuss now, that you're already undertaking independently. We do that, and the law allows us to do that. We don't have to wait to be moved. Sometimes we'll notice a matter, we'll see a trend. We also have our own ways, as an institution, of being able to get information. And we do that. We do that all the time, as we should. So, and then the other thing I'll also tell you is that, just to give an example, last month alone, as JSC, we constitute ourselves into teams, and we visited 56 court stations in 34 counties. And what we were doing is that, first and foremost, interacting with our judges and judicial officers and reminding them about the obligation to the public, reminding them about the Judicial Code of Conduct. And we have a very elaborate Judicial Code of Conduct that stipulates how a judge or a judicial officer or even our staff are supposed to conduct themselves, reminding them, because human beings need that constant reminder. We're also meeting the public, the business people, the civil society, the government officers who are at the station level. All those combined, it's not just our staff, our judges and judicial officers, also the members of the public, through what we call the court users committees, and engaging them and asking them, where do you think we are doing things right? Where do you think we are doing things wrong? What is the way that you think we can be able to collaborate and make things better in the interest of the public? And we're doing it robustly. We have fact sheets. In fact, we have documents, some of which even have carried here for you to see, which one of them is JSC at a glance, that provides clear mechanism through which you can put in a petition when you want to put in a petition. We have documents, how do you complain, where we're informing the public. We have that Judicial Code of Conduct, that Judicial, Service Code of Conduct and Ethics. So we have all these documents, and you can see these documents, we didn't develop them after we started being attacked in public. They were there, and we're already doing the job. So that shows you that there's that intention to make things right and ensure that judiciary is also accountable, because we accept that even as judiciary is independent, it must be accountable. Nobody has a quarrel with that. It is how you do it, the process that you follow in holding the judiciary to account, that is wrong.
Is now up for debate.
Absolutely.
Let me take you back into since 2013. All right, so we have a new government, new system of government. Constitution is now being implemented robustly. Since then, with the Uhuru Kenyatta administration up to the very end, and now with the William Ruto administration, something that is emerging is where the executive feels that the courts are being used to stall their projects. Even Parliament sometimes feeling that the courts are being used for political expediency. Political battles are now being fought using the courts. And it's basically amounting to abuse of the court process, if one may push that argument to that very end, where somebody goes to court under certificate of urgency and says, there's a certain matter that's happening and I'd like the court to halt it. And then we come and discuss. And the matter takes another X number of months under discussion with applications, in various courts. There's an application before the constitutional court. There's another application happening somewhere in another high court. It's basically just stalling this thing. In the meantime, everything pause, halt. And even if you look today, what the president was saying yesterday, he's accusing the opposition leaders of working with economic saboteurs to frustrate government efforts to improve the economy and liberate Kenyans. He defended his decision to engage with the judiciary. He's saying, there are cartels and other economic saboteurs who are responsible for this. They see a government project that has started. They rush to court. They don't have an argument as yet. They just say that, this one is wrong. It's unconstitutional. It's violating a certain section of the law. Can you please order the executive to hold it as we hear this, as you hear this matter? And the first thing that happens is that project stalls, and then it takes a long time for it to be concluded. What do you respond to that?
My brother Eric, you see, when a judge is making temporary orders, they'll not just make an order that is not supported by evidence at the time when somebody is seeking an order under certificate of urgency, because it's an affidavit. There will be material presented to them. Of course, how they rule is not within my province to say this is what determines the direction they take. But what we know, now speaking as a lawyer, is that they are guided by the material that is before them. That's what will determine. And not all the times that a party is given ex parte orders. You see, we'll give prominence to some of the matters which could be of great public interest where those orders have been issued, but there are also very many other matters equally of great public interest where orders have not been given. I know that for a fact also, again, as a practicing lawyer. So it will not be correct to say that it's in all these matters that orders are issued. But even then, I would want us to compare with other jurisdictions and give you also very prominent situations where courts in other jurisdictions have done the same. A classic example is the UK government, where the government at some point in time was literally having a plane taxiing to remove refugees and take them to Rwanda. And were stopped right in their tracks by a high court. The UK government was unhappy. They went to the Court of Appeal. Then after the Court of Appeal, it went even to the highest court in the UK. Now, and they were stopped finally, and they were told that the process that you're using, in spite of the negotiations you've undertaken with the Rwandese government, is not right. And yet, it's a very major issue in the UK government. In fact, it's one of the key planks in the policies and that have been set up by the government in the UK. And they were very unhappy. But you didn't hear them saying, these judges are frustrating the government, they are cartels, they've been corrupted. You didn't hear that. I'll give you another example of Argentina. There's the new president, some maverick, a guy called Javier Milei. The guy, when he was campaigning, he talked a lot about labor and economic reforms. And he came up with comprehensive, he had a lot of, regulations and that he came up with, and he said, this is the first thing I'm going to do the moment I'm sworn in. And sure enough, when he was sworn in, he came up with a raft of these labor and economic reforms. They were stopped by a court. And he was told, no, yes, you're doing it, but against the law. An injunction was issued. I have checked. I've not seen that guy saying that those guys are cartels or they are out to sabotage his government. I'll also give you an example. Previously, before this guy, there was a president called Alberto Fernandez, again of Argentina. And this guy, there was a dispute over the allocation of funds amongst the various states in Argentina. And he said that the state of Buenos Aires was being allocated a lot of money. So they came up with a policy, and as they were coming up with the regulation, they gave that state less money. Somebody went to court and said, no, you can't do that. And in fact, they went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, no, you are going to increase the allocation of the state of Buenos Aires. Alberto Fernandez said, how can a court which is not elected be the one now to determine for us how we are going to allocate funds? I'm going to disobey this court order. But within 7 days, he changed his mind. And I'll quote what he said. He said, Judicial decisions are binding, even when they appear disadvantageous or unfair. And consequently, we are going to implement the court order. And he did exactly that. So, the state of Israel recently, you know the famous case where the government of Netanyahu was also saying that it cannot be upon the courts to determine the reasonableness of the policy of the government, the test of reasonableness. And he said, we have to change the law. And indeed, he tried to change the law using the Knesset, the equivalent of our parliament. And they went ahead and did exactly that. The Supreme Court, 8:7, ruled otherwise and said, you cannot, our democratic setup in the state of Israel, if you start saying that the courts cannot interfere when it comes to a policy that is illegal, then you are disrupting the entire democratic setup of the state of Israel. So we are saying an absolute no. Now, why am I giving those examples amongst many others? Because, those are the ones I can give because of, the issue of time. Is to demonstrate to you that the manner in which our courts are conducting itself here is not unusual for any democracy that is geared towards respecting its constitutions, any democracy that is geared towards ensuring that it's enhancing the rule of law. That's the way to go. But you don't say cartels, you don't say about corruption, you don't say all these things. Opposition, you don't say all those things because it's our democracy. We have 2010 constitution. That's what we chose for ourselves. Unless you don't believe in it as a politician. But if you do believe in it, please infuse the spirit of that constitution in the entire fabric of the society so that you can have a better country. But more importantly, I know for a fact, sitting as a Kenyan, that no matter what we try to do to undermine the 2010 constitution, it's here to stay. There's nothing we can do about it. And the earlier all of us, wherever we sit, understand that we'll make our lives easier by just respecting it, by looking for all manner of, for looking for ways and means of abiding by it so that our lives can become better. That's the way the country will be able to move forward. Now, I'll answer your question about the issue of the timelines. For instance, when you say that even during the Uhuru government, they were saying that sometimes courts will take long and it ends up affecting the government projects. I recall that there were discussions then that when it came to the public procurement matters, for instance, that it was taking too long and it was stalling procurement process, and again it was affecting service delivery. And it is for that reason the law was changed to say that when you are objecting to a procurement, there are timelines. Right from the time when it comes before the Public Procurement Board, where it's determined, up to the time when it comes to the High Court, up to the time when it goes to the Court of Appeal. There's a strict timeline that is provided for, and you have to abide by it. You recall there was also a complaint where it was being said that when it came to petitions against, say, for instance, members of parliament, that sometimes it was taking too long to a point where you find that an undeserving member of parliament has served the entire term. That's why there was a timeline that was imposed. That's why I'm saying we cannot say that we cannot continuously improve. In fact, it's always said that in any situation, the biggest mistake you can make is to assume, it's grandiosity where you say now you've succeeded, you're doing well, you don't need to improve. We accept that discussions can always be had about how to continuously improve, which is why I'm saying, if those are the kind of discussions you'll be having, that's quite in order. We can say that can we improve on timelines? Can we ensure that so that we know where we stand and we're able to move on? But now the problem is, when you are starting from the premise that it is corruption that is making decisions go a certain way, that is cartels, that is sabotage from the judiciary, you are not creating the right ecosystem that will allow for meaningful discussions. And it's for that reason I'm saying that then you cannot say that it's good faith, because in any discussion, like equity, there has to be clean hands from both hands.
Clean hands, where politicians are concerned. Really?
There are politicians here. At the end of the day, we'll never do away with them because we are the ones who elect them. And sometimes we say that we get the leadership that we deserve. They are politicians. You remember, these people don't get themselves to office. But we must also remember that...
But do we elect them to do the things that they end up doing, really? Does that represent what it is?
It's not the mandate that we give them.
No, because it is like the mandate we give them was to go and do the things they do, which we keep complaining about. That isn't the mandate. They choose their own mandate and go their own merry way.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree that a lot of times they fail us. There are also some who actually, do the right thing. Again, we can't condemn them wholesome. But by and large, it is upon us also as a public to also hold them to account. And when they do wrong, we must say no. Like we are saying now, these discussions are also good for our country because it also speaks to the democracy we have. And I'll also tell you this, that I recall last year, I bumped into the Secretary General of IGAD. I don't know him, but he was introduced to me. And the first thing he told me the moment he knew that, I work with the Judicial Service Commission, is that what we admire most about Kenya is the independence of the judiciary. I was telling you about a guy called Akpata, the former Nigeria Bar Association president. He was saying the same thing, that Kenya is a trailblazer when it comes to the judiciary independence. So let's not destroy that.
Macharia Njeru, the Vice Chairperson of the Judicial Service Commission, he's been our guest this morning. Keep it here for more conversations. Good morning.